Welcome, my humble and gentle listeners. This is Rapflex Radio, and I am your host, Kyle Rapp. I was told I have the delivery stylings of Nick Offerman, so I'm just trying it on for size here. But seriously, welcome back to Rapflex Radio. I am your host, Kyle Rapp, and on today's episode, we are going to get into sort of the minutia of goal setting when it comes to actual time-bound goals. Last episode, I had spoke on when to create systems and how to track consistent improvement in your life, and I think a lot of people are missing that. But when it comes to actual time-bound goals, whether it is a full season of your sport, whether it is a book launch, a course launch, anything that actually has a deadline, and it could be your fault if you keep pushing it back like I have several times already. But really, I want to speak on what to do when you actually have something time bound and you're not chasing kind of a aspirational identity that you want to become something. So you actually have a deadline. You need to have concrete outcomes, tasks, and steps for you to achieve this. But first, I want to go into kind of why most people don't achieve the goals that they want. And I touched on this a little bit within systems. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I would listen to that first before listening to this, because a lot of goals set should be part of a system. But if they're time bound, you have a deadline, it's something that you want to achieve by a certain day, then let's talk about what most people do. And the first thing that most people do is they have either no vision for their life or no aspirational identity for their life. And yes, I touched on that with the systems, and that's exactly what you're doing. But if you're setting a time-bound goal, and I'll get into this with the second portion of it, we're trying to be realistic when we're setting goals. I'm just going to start. Smart goals are bullshit, and I'll get to that in my second part. But when it comes to your vision and your aspirational identity, you're setting something that you can't really perceive or achieve in your current state, in your current mindset, and your current skill set. But that is something that you're chasing and you're improving upon, and that's a lot of what systems allow you to do, is to constantly improve and get to that stage much faster than if you were just throwing darts at the wall, hoping to either build a skill set or that knowledge. Smart goals are bullshit, and I've already said this about 30 seconds ago. I want to tell you that this is probably the number one misguided advice when setting goals. Yes, they should be specific, like they should be very clear, and you should have control over them in your mind. Measurable, yes, that's almost common sense. I shouldn't have to say that. When you're setting steps or tasks or outcomes, there should be a way for you to gauge whether or not you've reached them. Attainable, when we get into that, when we get into realistic, I'm here to tell you guys, like, the biggest outcomes in my life and the things I'm most proud of in life came from when I thought things weren't attainable or realistic. And I've got several examples. One just happened yesterday. I'm 2 years into this, and I applied for Tim Grover's Down and Dirty program. Tim Grover is behind me. You can't really see him, but he's one of my modern mentors. He coached Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and he's the epitome of what I look up to when I say I want to be a world-class coach and get into the elite performance space. I applied for his group coaching program 2 years in to my business, which probably isn't realistic, but it was obtainable because I just got in yesterday. Another example, I reached out to someone with 187,000 followers on Instagram and asked if there was any way I could help them start a podcast. We are now a year and a half in, and I believe over 180,000 downloads. And that is Aaron Diamond and Jordan Duggar, who eclipsed, I think, 1.2 million in revenue this year. That wasn't realistic to reach out to them. I had only done two podcasts by that point. I was nervous as hell, but I didn't let that stop me because I believed I could be of help. And that's when I tossed realistic to the side and just did it. Yesterday, I reached out to Aaron and Jordan's coach, Jason Phillips, and texted him and just wanted to thank him and stuff like that. That's not realistic. It's obtainable, but it's not realistic for someone who's in the second year, basically, of their coaching and their media journey to reach out to one of the best coaches in the world. But I did it because I know where I'm going. I have an aspirational identity. I want to surround myself with the best, and that's what you do. So, I've been in academia. I've studied evidence-based research, and I've got 10 studies on goal setting right next to me, and most of it's crap. It really is, because it doesn't take into consideration who you're trying to be, how you're going to get there, and there's so many individual factors when we're talking about what is it that you truly want, because again, that's what a goal is. It's something that you don't have that you want. And for me, I could have just, this podcast, for example, if I wanted to be realistic and what my perception of attainable was, I would not have had 2 former NFL players on already. So I want that to sink in that, yes, have specific and measurable goals, but after that, you're only holding yourself back when you believe that, oh, this isn't obtainable or this isn't realistic. I want to get that through to you, so just go after what you want. That's important. So the next thing most people do, they weigh what they want next to their opportunity costs. And this is something I have absolutely seen recently with obtaining clients and coaching clients. They don't want to give up time with their significant others. They would rather be sleeping, which is fine. I'm not going to judge you. And I love sleep. Right now, one of the most difficult things is for me to get up at 6. Today it was 6:30, so I'm very proud of that. And I'm just going to keep bumping it back a little more. And I get it. Comfort is... I'm like Donald Trump. Comforting is very comforting. Comfort is it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint to stay in your comfort zone. But to obtain what you want, you're gonna have to get out of that comfort zone and be forever out of that comfort zone. Because that's what I'm doing with this group coaching with Tim Grover. It's gonna be people that are high up there because he doesn't take everyone, and it's going to make me step up my game. So when we get to operations and projects and things like that, things you have to ask yourself are, what am I willing to give up? You are going to give up something, because if you want something different in your life and you only have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, you're going to have to put in time to do that thing, and you're going to have to remove something else for that to happen. Another is lack of ambition and expectation of actually reaching that goal. For me, for an example, when I reached out to Erin, I had very little expectation that she would get back to me, because I know how full DMs are. Maybe not so much 2 years ago, and that's scary to say that with the social media landscape. But I had no expectation. I was just giving, and I happened to come across her Instagram story at that time. About a year and a half in, we have a great working relationship, and now Jordan and Aaron and I are friends, and that has spurred other relationships. I took over Embody Radio. I've met Cody, my coach, Sam Miller, a lot of these people, and that started with just reaching out for value. And I had very little expectation, but I had a lot of ambition for what I saw the freelance media side of my company growing and what it needed to be. So if you have the one, if you have ambition, that's going to allow you to take action. If you couple that with the expectation and the confidence, and that comes with competence, if you're very good at something, you're going to be confident at it. When you're first starting out, this is why a lot of people give up, is because they have no competence and they're not willing to suck at this for a long enough time to get good enough to either work with the people they want to, or to improve and strive to get to where they feel comfortable enough to do what they want. And I've seen this a ton of times in my life of people, but I've now reached a certain point with my coaching, with my speaking, with the media side of it, that I have enough competence in it to have a great expectation and put a lot of quote unquote pressure on myself to see the results that I want to. So another is social expectations. And you've probably heard this before, that you are the 5 people that you surround yourself most with. And I couldn't agree more with this. In graduate school, I felt alone because I had seen the real world for 3 years on Long Island. And I came back to this, and it's not their fault. They went straight from undergrad to grad, the program. And when you're in this college lifestyle, that's just what it is. And I got transplanted back into it, and it was a struggle for me. And I was able to connect with people who are working full time and doing what they love and making 6 and 7 figures and stuff like that. So I was able to put myself into an arena that, again, going back to SMART goals, probably wasn't realistic at the time, but I did it. I tried and I succeeded. And that's only led to me getting so much further than if I would have just focused on school 100% of the time and then waited, where let's put as much pressure on myself right now, because I was growing a freelance company at the time in my master's degree and was number 2 in a startup all at the same time, and chasing physique goals and chasing personal development and a relationship at the time. So with all that comes a lot of pressure and a lot of prioritization, and you have to learn how to set systems and goals and those steps and those tasks to have all of those things come out the way you want them to. And yes, I did burn out slightly, but was it worth it? Yes, because I can now stand here and say it's worth putting yourself through the hell and the fire to be able to say to yourself, I can do this, and I can do this across every plane of my life, because I've now tested myself, and it did work out the way I wanted it to. And to be around other people who are doing the same thing and who are going to elevate you to their level, it's the most important thing. And I will tease this, I am offering something that will allow you to constantly do that here in the next month. Another thing is like a lack of prioritization, and this is individualized too. Like, you need to know what is important to you, and your goals will be different than someone else's, but you need to learn how to prioritize. And I'll get into that more specifically within morning routines and evening routines and covering prioritization specifically. But know what the major keys and what's going to propel you forward in life, rather than 3,186 checklists, creating those and then just checking everything off. Are those things really pushing you towards the person you're trying to become? That's something you need to consider. Lastly, and this is a huge thing, and a lot of my coaching takes consideration of this, it's energy management. It is understanding what attention fatigue is. It's understanding when to delegate and when to automate certain things in your life. If we go back to last week's episode when I talked about my Rockwell fitness system, Cody, my coach, I have planned out for a year my periodization of my exercise plan. So I don't have to think about it. I've already planned it. I can go into the gym knowing exactly what I need to do to achieve what I'm looking for aesthetically. And that is not something I have to spend hours working on or even thinking about. And these are things that you should do as well, is creating systems. And for an example, laundry. I know we hate to do it, but every Friday, I do it. I fold everything. I lay everything out for the week. So I have an entire week of my gym clothes, my work clothes, my bedtime clothes. Yes, I'm that neurotic, but it's things I don't want to have to think about. Food and nutrition's the same way. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have factor 75 meals delivered here because it's going to be a busy 3 weeks of work. And I need to take away as many decisions as possible to be able to focus and have my full attention on what needs to happen. And for you, I want that same thing for you, is understanding, where can I delegate some things? Where can I automate? What are some opportunities for that? And creating a system is going to allow you to do that. But when you're chasing and you're focused on some of these time-bound goals, that's something to consider as well. Now, I want to take you kind of very metally through two sort of, I'll take a personal and then a professional look into how I do goal setting currently as of, what is today? The 16th of January, 2020. I've gone through Brennan Burchard's GPS, which he hit, I believe it's goal prioritization strategy. I know it as goal purpose strategy because purpose allows us to infuse a lot of emotional fire within goal setting, which I believe is very important. But I like goal purpose system, but sometimes that system is going to be time bound. And this is when we use campaigns, or I use campaigns, and I teach my clients how to use campaigns. And those are year-long goals. So at the beginning of the year, I set out, I call it Rockwell again, for my body, my nutrition, my recovery, my sleep, everything that involves what I'm chasing aesthetically and my health has been lumped into what you could consider a folder on your computer. And then if you clicked on that, you would see what I call operations, which are your 3-month, in this case, they're intermediate goals, which are super important because you can set a year-long goal, but having something to marathon basically to is going to be very important for your confidence, because a year is quite a long time. But if you can say to yourself, yeah, I can focus and grind for 3 months for this, then it doesn't seem so daunting. And when we get into projects, those are about a month, and those are basically sprints. But I want to go back to operations again. So I have Operation Rockwell, and it's just, for my physical health, I have it so systemized, as you can probably understand, that I really don't need to change things up. Professionally, you're going to see a very different thing. But I have, Operation Rockwell Phase 1, which is 3 months, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing Body by Science, Total Recall, and I'm going to look right this second. The conjugate. So those are just names of the exercise plans. I know I'm in a slight surplus when it comes to nutrition right now, and I'm going to bed. I'm getting to bed at 9 and getting up at 6. I am not absolutely habitual with that, but those are kind of my measures of success, and I've been able to systemize that entire process. But with professional, again, I'm only 2 years into this. I've been lifting for 7 years and have a great understanding of what it takes. So in professional, I'm calling this Operation Phoenix in this 3-month time span. And I named it that because the last 3 months, so we were talking October, November, December, did not go the way I wanted it to professionally. I was holding myself back. I was not taking action as I should have. I had the plan, but I just was not executing. So if you understand what the phoenix represents, it's rising from the ashes, and I'm being overly dramatic for a point. I've now set up what I believe is a tremendous business plan, and I'm executing on it daily. But when I see Operation Phoenix, that elicits an emotional response to me of resilience, and that I know I'm going to put forth the effort necessary. So those are basically my 2 big 3-month operations, is my health and then my business. I have other smaller goals that are in a system, but those are really the 2 main focuses. Now I have Operation Ferris, which is more of a campaign, but I have certain books and certain courses that I'm taking, and I'm adding Tim Grover's D&D into that. So those are operations, 3 months, and really for me, it is getting very clear on the picture of perfection of what the next 3 months would look like, key outcomes. We're not getting to tasks just yet, but this is kind of a macro view of, say, when we talk about campaigns, they're year-long, an operation's 3 months. So what do I need to do in that 3 months to get me at least a fourth of the way there to getting my year goal? And once you do that, you're going to get more specific on what you need to do today, because execution is everything. Being present moment and being in the moment is everything. And that's how you do that. So now we're going to get on to projects. So I have 6 projects in my Operation Phoenix. Now we have systems, which, like content creation, this episode is part of a system, but things that I'm releasing, my book, for example, that's going to come out late March, that is a project. So that's Project Anxiety Trigger Volume 1. That is a book about a high school baseball player. He's a senior, Alex Schofield, and he unfortunately finds out a tragic, I overhype it and say it cover up, but he finds out something that kind of shakes his world. And I'm really excited. I'm about halfway through that, and really excited to release that. And I enjoy writing. I enjoy storytelling. This is something I want to get better at. And only by doing am I going to do that. So in that project, I have a deadline, key tasks that need to be performed, and just off and going. So some of these do need more specific, like a course, for example, would need, a sales page, a pre-launch strategy, a launch strategy, a post-launch strategy if I have one, any promotional sort of bits. Like I can give you an example of the free course that's coming out next week. Is I need to finish my presentations. That's a task. So that's 4 of them. Record the presentations. That's 4 of them. I need to put it together in Kartra. I need to launch it, and the deadline is the 19th. Please hold me to that, because this has been a long time coming. I had add traffic, so that's going to be later. The PDF's created. I need to test it myself. I need to create the sales page, and then I need to create a email sequence that follows when you sign up for that. So those are very specific task-oriented things that I can now check off. But it's part of the bigger Operation Phoenix system, or not system, but that operation, that 3-month marathon. I would consider Project Flex the sprint. And that's, I think, Right now, that's how I enjoy seeing things from an outcome and task perspective. And I'm messing around with some different things, but right now I'm highly motivated to do all these things because I felt like I gypped myself, if you would, the last 3 months. And you typically do have more motivation and inspiration because this is just the time of year for it. You do see production at the beginning of the year, those first 3 months, and then the last 3 months because everyone thinks that they need to catch up. So that's really within the 6 months between April and September is really where we see production go down. It's just the human condition. But I really, like, my main takeaway for you is to understand when something is time bound on a goal and when something needs to be part of a system that you're constantly either improving upon or something you want to track consistently. And then look at it from a year perspective, a 3-month perspective, and then a 1-month perspective, and get macro clear on the outcomes. What would excite you? You need to word it in a way that emotionally gets you to execute and act, because that's what, honestly, and to tease this too, time management is not logical, it is now emotional. Like I said with opportunity costs, you need to be emotionally invested in what you're doing to be able to do it. And when you ask yourself, what are you willing to give up? If you don't have that emotion behind it, you're probably not going to do it. So with 1-month projects, get very clear on the tasks that need to be performed, and whether you can delegate or automate any of those portions, that's completely up to you, and I would highly advise that. But get real clear on outcomes and tasks, execute, and you'll be well on your way to getting more done in a month, 3 months, and a year than most people do in 10 years or in their lifetime. I truly believe that. So again, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button. I don't want you to miss an episode. And until next time, guys, have a great day.